have just been talking about how Disney Plus needs to find a way to compete with the more sophisticated and adult shows of HBO and Netflix, which also have big budgets and IP, yet still retain the Disney magic that sets the Mouse House apart and gives it its edge, or has given it that edge in the past. And here it is! This is it! This is it. I thought episode 2 was special the first time I watched it last week when they sent out the screeners for episodes 1 and 2. And when I watched it again to do this breakdown, I was even more impressed. Talk about This Is the Way. We've not only got old school Star Wars here, but this episode is a sci-fi horror fairy tale. How cool is that? Allow me to explain. So clearly, Din and Bo have a lot in common. At first, I just giggled that it was like they met on a Mandalorian dating app. And you'll note that Bo-Katan calls him Din, his given name. Very personal. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, Mando, you see that? You catching this vibe? But as the episode progressed, especially when I watched it the second time, I realized what we really have here is a Mandalorian princess and a Mandalorian knight in Beskar armor. Oh, I love it! And even on top of that, Bo-Katan has lost her faith, and Din Djarin has faith to spare. All she sees is a still dead planet, but he sees a future for their people. And as Bo-Katan sees the fairy tales of her childhood come to life through and around Din Djarin, I think she too begins to see a future for her people yet again. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so good. That's right, Din Djarin goes to bathe in the waters of Mandalore in full armor, dang it. I know last week some of you were leaving comments being like, oh, he's gonna bathe next week. And I was like, because I'd seen it, I was like, oh, you guys, I feel bad. And then he promptly sinks like a rock, which was hilarious. And Bo-Katan goes to rescue him, keeping her jetpack on, like the sensible warrior she is. Hey, opposites attract, right? And when she's down there, she sees a Mythosaur, the giant sea creature that Mandalore first defeated, which was what made these waters holy, and its skull became the Mandalorian symbol. Heck, they even used to ride them, right? So to quote Han Solo from Star Wars itself, it's real, all of it. And it was a heck of a lot more believable, this time. It hit harder, that line, because nobody actually said it. Show don't tell, folks. Show don't tell. Do you see how much more effective it is? But it did remind me, of the line, to be fair. Great script, though, from, once again, Johnny Fabs, with Bo-Katan sarcastically giving Mando the full tour right before that discovery, reading the plaque, which lets the audience know, or reminds them, for those who are very good at their Star Wars lore, what you're about to see. Also, Mando showing Grogu how to navigate, especially the system that they're in, which allows Grogu to tell R5 later on where they need to go when Mando gets captured. Even setting up that due to the bombs used to level Mandalore, you can't get a message off planet unless you leave the planet. So that was all very good exposition. Very nicely done. And the music this episode. Wow, Joseph Shirley taking over for award-winning legendary Ludwig Göransson, who I believe Shirley trained with. And wow, what a training program. Shirley really stepped up here. Wow, with incredible music, especially during Grogu's escape and Bo-Katan's big fight sequence. I was like, oh, the music here is particularly good. Also, kudos to director Rachel Morrison. Ryan Coogler, by the way, discovered basically Rachel Morrison and Ludwig Göransson. So way to go, Ryan Coogler. I love Ryan Coogler, sharing the love with a lot of great diverse talent himself. I mean, it's great. I love the love. This is what it should all be about. And so Ryan Coogler also found Rachel Morrison, and she's been the cinematographer on some of his biggest movies. And also she has a very impressive resume overall. And she's just starting to get into directing, and this is her biggest credit yet. And she really delivered. Very nicely done, Ms. Morrison. So let's back up a little bit here. Bo-Katan, a major character from the Filoniverse, yet another that he's brought into live action, much to the delight of his fans and the rest of us. Although I've become a fan of the Filoniverse. He got me. Thanks to all of you keep telling me to go watch this stuff. We'll talk about the Bad Batch at the end of this thing. Watch Bad Batch Season 2. It's as good as this show. All right, so anyway, as good as this episode. So Bo-Katan is a major character from the animated series, and as we look at the remains of Mandalore, you can see the ghost of the planet, by the way, from when it was thriving in the animated series. You're like, wow, it did look just like that. Here, I don't know how much, I'm sure most of it was the volume, but I think it was used quite well. It looked very good. It looked like movie level to me. It looked great. It wasn't one of those instances where you're like, you're on the volume. You're like, ooh, we're on Mandalore. I love it. So yeah, it looks just like it did in the animated, well, it looks like the remains of the animated series. It did look like it had been a long time. They really did a good job destroying that planet. That could be like an ad for the Empire's destruction services, before and after. Look what we can do. But Bo-Katan left a lot out when talking to Mando about the history of the planet and her family. So I'll fill you in a little bit if you didn't watch the shows, the animated shows. So Bo-Katan had a sister, Satine, and it was she who led Mandalore as Duchess after their father's death, and Satine was a pacifist, whereas Bo-Katan wanted to return Mandalore to its warrior ways. Now, both Satine and Bo-Katan knew not only Jedi, but some crucial Jedi, like the most important Jedi. And in fact, Satine even had a forbidden flirtation with Mr. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ooh, the plot thickens. Satine and Bo-Katan were estranged, and it was Bo-Katan who helped overthrow her sister and let the Empire in, which she obviously came to really regret. Not only because Mandalore was eventually destroyed, but none other than Darth Maul killed Satine in front of Obi-Wan. You can see why Obi-Wan and Darth Maul are bitter enemies. They had a falling out finally in Rebels, but, it would be great to see them maybe be able to do that in live action. It would be hard because, Darth Maul's now dead, but, you find a way. So when Bo-Katan is talking of infighting being what really destroyed the Mandalorians, she's not just talking about infighting amongst the clans, but amongst her own family, with her sister, the royal family. The feels! Oh, the feels! I think that, I don't even know if Katie Sackhoff really sold that moment, quite frankly, unless you knew about it. I mean, she didn't, when she said that, you weren't like, ooh, what's she leaving out? There's hidden depths. You were like, okay, yeah, I feel sad about it too. So, but I think when you know all that backstory, that conversation becomes even more interesting. Perhaps Mando's faith and pure heart can heal Bo-Katan. As I said, opposites attract. Bo-Katan is the only one of them who's actually ever been to Mandalore, so she's not only used to it by now, but it's tarnished by all the horrible things that happened there. Not only that she witnessed, but many of them which she did herself or facilitated. But to Mando, this is again fantasy come true. He's never been to Mandalore, as he tells Grogu. He's only ever dreamed of it, and I think he allows Bo-Katan to see it with fresh eyes. Even if she does it reluctantly, he's rubbing off on her. And to maybe cleanse her in a way too. Like, they both end up going into the waters because Bo-Katan has to save him. How cool is that? Like, I only thought of that when I was writing out my notes. I was like, wow, due to what happens, Bo-Katan also gets cleansed. And I think that is just so well done. It's really good stuff, but yet it still has that family feel and still is very much Disney content, but still being able to, I think, compete with this other IP that don't have quite the same restrictions that Disney has to deal with. Because, Disney, those are benefits to Disney, but sometimes can hold them back a little bit too. And so they have to, it wouldn't be, a lot of work for a big reward. But when Disney does it right, like this episode, you can see how effective that it is. Now, it's also interesting that Mando insists that Mandalore isn't cursed, even though there seems to be a heck of a lot of evidence to the contrary. To me, it was not just shocking. I jumped both times that he befell tragedy. But I also thought it almost became comical how much the planet was trying to kill him. And he was like, nope, still fine here. It's a great place. I love it. It did kick up. The first time I was just shocked with the bug trap. And then coming off of a nice Hamlet moment there of calm. But then when he also suddenly sank into the water, I was like, this is hilarious, right? And especially because he still believes, that's the joke. He's like, no, great place. I'm loving it here. And just horrible stuff keeps happening to him. And I think Bo-Katan needs that kind of positivity. For instance, when she was talking again about her father and dying for Mandalore, and Din stopped and said, this is the way to comfort her, I believe that did make her feel better, because someone believes that her father's death mattered and that there was honor to it. Because looking around at the ruins of Mandalore, ruins that she helped bring about, I'm sure she's been feeling that maybe her father died for nothing, and especially because of her efforts. So I think, and I would say, Mando doesn't know that part of the backstory, and maybe would feel a little bit differently if he did. But that's okay. All right, so let's talk about that bug. Oh my God, I love it so much. I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is one of those things where you're like, I can't believe I'm witnessing it. I wonder if anything will trend. Because what would trend? This is, I believe, a new character, a new species, which is what makes it so shocking. So people are going to have to all decide on what to call it. Bug, maybe? It's just very cool. The reveals of the different levels, like Russian nesting dolls of this thing. And obviously it was a fully CGI character, very good CGI, but they intentionally made it move like stop motion, which made it fit with the other old school Star Wars creatures that they have in the rest of the episode. Seriously, this thing looked like it was dreamed up by Leica, and I love that for Star Wars. Coolest droid, villain, hero, or comedic relief since General Grievous, and interestingly, they're both cyborgs. The eye was hella creepy. And then the reveals of how it could transform, right? The design of the middle figure, it was very creepy when it was just a head and you're like, we still didn't kill it. I still don't feel like they totally killed it, to be honest with you. I was like, did you stab it in the head? Because you didn't. You just cut it off at the neck. I think it's still okay. Don't turn your back on that thing. But the middle figure was particularly cool. Very nightmare material, from H.R. Geiger to a little Harryhausen mixed in there. And that is a great combination. And then it wanted Mando's blood. I was like, what do you even want that for, man? That was right up there with freezing Han and Carbonite. Perfect! This episode had a lot of the just creepy enough to still get away with it being family entertainment. Where a kid, you remember this from your own childhood, where you kind of look at your parents and be like, is it okay then? Or you don't even look. You're like, I can't believe that they haven't turned this off and I'm still allowed to watch it. This is amazing. That's what this had, and that's something that Jim Henson was, particularly well known for back in the day. That when you can do like just perfect dark kids entertainment, everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. It's great. Grogu was starting to have like a real Dark Crystal vibe, especially around the eyes and the ears. I'm like, hey, you look like one of those Dark Crystal creatures. And the lizards that are down there, those to me looked like animatronics on a Disneyland ride, which is awesome because I love Disneyland rides. I was like, ooh, let's build this. This looks like a lot of fun. And Bo-Katan showed that bug who was boss. Not only did she get to wield the Darksaber, and she doesn't need no force, she's got a zipline, but we get to see her personal combat shield in live action. I don't believe she deployed it last season. Did she? I don't remember that she did, but it looked great, and she of course used it all the time in the animated series. Plus she went all Lara Croft again with the double guns. Oh, it was great. I also think Bo-Katan has far better jetpack form than Mando does. Not just positioning her arms and legs, but her landing. That was great body acting by either Katie Sackhoff or her stunt double. But I guess it makes sense because Bo-Katan does have a lot more practice with a jetpack. She practically grew up with one probably, whereas, Mando has only recently acquired his. He should pick up some moves. Maybe that can be a date night. I don't know. I'm shipping him. But you know who also has some moves? Grogu. He's doing the flippy flips. Although in the wide shots, boy, does he look like a puppet. Distractingly so. It's like Pelly is holding a Grogu toy rather than the real deal. I'm like, if you guys want to do these wide shots, you got to work on making him more animated. Again, Grogu was so close to speaking. Grogu can clearly understand everything that Mando says, and he just can't answer quite yet. And Mando's starting to kind of maybe understand him a little bit, but maybe the way you would understand, again, something that can't speak. I think they're so close. Again, will Grogu, will they wait for those first pure words, and will he speak with the Yoda, the backwards speak of Yoda? But will it be at the end of the season or maybe a little earlier? And he moves around a lot on his own too. He's becoming a true Robin or Ellie to Mando's Batman/Joel. I love the line, all right, kid, you ready for an adventure? When they took off from Tatooine with all the fireworks in the background, which they totally ripped off from Wonder Woman 1984, but I'll allow it. And I also thought it was very cute when Grogu was worried about their off-brand R2-D2. I was like, he's a droid. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. I also love Grogu's agency, from exploring the caves by Mando's side. Those shots, they looked like something right out of anime. I thought they were so cool. And this is the future of these characters, hopefully. I love them as a team, exploring side by side. Grogu didn't hang back, right? They were truly a team coming down together and moving around together. I thought that was so great. Some great shots of them. I was like, wow, this is the way. Also, when Grogu tried to help Mando when he was captured, to go, and then, but he couldn't, he wasn't strong enough to get him out of there. That was great. To go get help. Like, you didn't have to tell Grogu twice. He was out of there. But he wasn't running away. You didn't get that feel. I mean, sure, he was scared, but he had a job to do. It was imperative that he escaped so that he could save his dad, because his dad's life depended on him escaping and getting to Bo-Katan. That was great. That was a great sequence. His little ears flapping in the wind. I thought it was so good. I do love Bo-Katan also treating them and addressing them as father and son. It's great. Great. And when Grogu does return with Bo-Katan, Bo-Katan's ship, fast, but also has room for sleeping. How much did you get for this thing, Bo-Katan? And when she tells Grogu that he has to push past his fears and help her find Mando, I loved when Grogu turned on his own little light, right? And he was like, let's do this, basically. And he's driving his own stroller around. He's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it for Daddy. Other thoughts. Wow, Mando is not going to risk the armorer's wrath again. It looks like that helmet ain't never coming off anymore, right? Never. He's not even going to cheat anymore. I mean, in this episode alone, he eats with it on, Mandalorian staple, Pog soup, soon available at Galaxy's Edge. I was like, is it like a chowder? But I mean, how good can it be if it came from a dry pack? But anyway, Mando bathes in his helmet, full armor. Again, so many Pedro Pascal fans disappointed. And then even when he almost drowns and he's hacking up a lung, he still has the helmet on. Like, wow. It veers a little uncomical, but that's okay. It's because it's the family kind of entertainment that, I think it still works, but it's crazy. That Darksaber too. The Darksaber. It looks so good in live action no matter who's wielding it. Although it's interesting, now that I think about it, Mando really struggles to wield it, but I thought Bo-Katan, who's not, I don't think she has the same strength as Mando, she was able to wield it a little bit better. Did she ever wield it in the series? Maybe she also has more experience with it. I know that Sabine Wren has used it, but I don't know if Bo-Katan has. She probably she's jonesing for that thing so much. I think maybe she must have, right? All right. So anyway, I wonder what other lightsaber alterations we could come up with. Playing with energy and light. I have mixed feelings about some of the old school practical aliens. I felt that the Alamites were particularly silly. I was like, come on. But it did make the Cyborg that much cooler. That kind of fit with that. When you say, hey, we're going Dark Crystal, H.R. Geiger, Harryhausen, you're like, okay, an original Star Wars. Then I'm okay with it. But I thought the Alamites were really pushing the edge of the envelope and what we can accept. And I can't believe that when Grogu returned to get Bo-Katan, she was still sitting on that throne. Like, they don't want to build any more set? Is that really what it is? Don't they just have to they have to just build a few pieces and throw the rest of it up on the volume? I mean, it's a castle. It's got lots of rooms. She could have at least gotten up and walked around that room, maybe looked at the mural a little bit. I would think as an actor, Katie Sackhoff would be like, I'm still sitting here? Come on, I got to be doing something. I got to be doing something else. Could I at least, be reading? Do I have like a Star Wars version of a phone or a book? And then, of course, return to Tatooine on Boonta Eve, no less, as in the Boonta Eve Classic, an annual pod race like the races in Monaco, or, the one Anakin Skywalker won in Episode 1. That's a pretty good con Pelly's got going with the Jawas, and she speaks pretty darn good Jawa'ese. That's what it's called. I looked it up, Jawa'ese. Although those Jawas seemed underage to me, so I wonder what the Jawa looked like that she dated. I thought it was funny some of you thought of Pelly last week. As a way to find the memory chip that Mando needs for IG-11. And Mando had that same idea. That's the first place that he went. Maybe she'll have found it when Mando circles back after this Mandalorian adventure. Also, by the way, the droid body for that evil cyborg, the middle version, that looked a little bit like IG-11's body. So I was like, hey, I wonder if there's a chip in there. But at least so far, nobody has dared check. But I thought when I first saw him climb out, I was like, oh, are those IG-11 parts? I wish maybe Mando should have said that when it was getting sucked dry, right? All right, so that's my breakdown of Mando Season 3, Episode 2. Now this is the Disney Plus entertainment we have been looking for. It's as good as a Bad Batch episode. Seriously, Season 2 for the Bad Batch airing right now is amazing and important. A lot of important stuff happening there right now. You should definitely be watching that show. You don't even have to have watched any previous stuff. I mean, the first season of Bad Batch was pretty good, but nothing compared to Season 2. You could just jump right in and you'll be fine. You'll catch up. A lot of stuff happening over there, and hopefully on Mando Season 3 as well. So after a slow first episode, I'd say things are really starting to look good. What did you think? What do you think of our Mandalorian princess and her knight in Beskar armor? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.